The Woman in Disguise, a mission to reveal what's inside the Quran. Before you click away, you need to see this. This woman is walking through dangerous neighborhoods in disguise. She's not a Muslim, but she's dressed like one because her life depends on it. Her mission? To tell Muslims what's actually written in their own holy book. She believes if more Muslims knew what was in the Quran, more would leave Islam. This is her story, and it's more shocking than you might imagine. Mona Walters' journey began thousands of miles away in war-torn Somalia. At 19, she arrived in Sweden as a refugee, filled with excitement about joining a modern European nation where women had equal rights and opportunities. She dreamed of freedom, of a new life, of possibilities she'd never known. But the Sweden she encountered as a young Muslim woman was nothing like what she had imagined. In a twist she never saw coming, it was in progressive, modern Sweden where she first experienced radical Islam on a daily basis. Growing up in Somalia, she had simply been born into a Muslim country. Islam was just part of the cultural background, something everyone around her practiced without much thought. She had never actually read the Quran. No one had taught her what Muhammad did or who Allah really was according to Islamic texts. She was Muslim in name, but not in understanding. Everything changed when she arrived in Sweden and started attending mosque. There, for the first time, she encountered the Quran itself. The demands came quickly: cover yourself, be a good Muslim, follow the rules. For the first time in her life, she began reading the Islamic texts for herself, and what she discovered shook her to her core. She didn't understand what she had been part of her entire life. As she dove deeper into Islamic teachings, learning about Muhammad and Allah through the actual texts, her emotions churned. She felt upset, sad, and deeply disappointed. The Allah she discovered in the Quran was not a God of love, but a God who hates. Islam, she realized, was not the religion of peace she had always been told it was. Instead, she found it was about hating and killing those who disagree, about conquering rather than coexisting. The more she learned about Muhammad, the more disturbed she became. She read his biography and was horrified by what she found: a man who was immoral and bloodthirsty, a man who was terrible in his treatment of others. She read how he dealt with Jews, how he raped women, how he killed people who didn't agree with him. Anyone who refused to follow him was eliminated. These weren't anti-Islamic interpretations or distortions. These were the stories told in Islam's own historical texts. Discouraged and disillusioned, she left Islam entirely and became an atheist. If this was what religion offered, she wanted nothing to do with it. She tried to build a life without faith, but something was missing. Then one day, a family relative encouraged her to do something she never thought she would do: read the Bible. She still remembers the first time she encountered Matthew 5 verse 44, where Jesus said to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. The words hit her like a lightning bolt. Love your enemy? The concept was completely foreign to everything she had been taught. In Islam, you kill your enemy. You kill everyone who refuses Islam. But Jesus Christ was all about love, peace, forgiveness, and tolerance. For some reason she couldn't fully explain, she needed that message desperately. She sought out Pastor Fouad Rashio, a Syrian immigrant who ministers to former Muslims in Sweden. Through their conversations, something began to change in her heart. She started to believe, and from that moment, she began trusting in a completely different path. She was filled with joy as she accepted Jesus Christ into her life. But her conversion didn't bring her peace and quiet. Instead, the Lord gave her a burden for Muslims who still didn't know the truth about Islam, who had never read the Quran for themselves just as she hadn't for most of her life. She felt compelled to act. She began copying verses from the Quran and handing them out on the street to Muslim women. The reactions varied wildly. Sometimes women would listen. Sometimes they became very upset and defensive. She would tell them simple facts from their own holy book, like that their husbands have the right to beat them if they don't obey. The women would often deny it, saying that's not in the Quran. She would insist it was. The verse she's referring to is Quran 4:34, which explicitly discusses men's authority over women and gives permission for husbands to strike disobedient wives. Her thinking was straightforward: if she could tell Muslims about Muhammad, about what's actually in the Quran, about this God of Islam who hates, who kills, who discriminates against women, maybe they would have the information they needed to make a choice and leave. But in politically correct Sweden, Mona Walter has come under severe attack for simply telling Muslims what is written in their own holy book. She's been called an Islamophobe repeatedly. She's endured terrible things, including having her house and neighborhood targeted. Simply for quoting the Quran to Muslims, she has been labeled a racist, despite the fact that Islam is not a race but a religion, and despite the fact that she herself came from a Muslim background. She warns that Islamic radicalism is a serious threat in Sweden and believes Swedish society should care more about women trapped in Islam. Many people think that because Sweden has freedom of religion, all Swedish Muslims enjoy that freedom. But Muslim women don't have freedom of religion, she argues. They live under the law of Allah, not under Swedish law. While everyone else in Sweden has freedom of religion, Muslim women are bound by religious rules that supersede the law of the land. Today, she lives under constant death threats and sometimes travels with police protection. When she wanted to show Muslim areas around Gothenburg, she had to dress as a Muslim first. She believes if she were to show her face as Mona Walter, the ex-Muslim Christian, she would be attacked immediately. She never goes to those areas as herself, in flesh and blood as Mona. She's certain she would never get out alive. She's careful to note that Muslims are normally good people, just like everyone else. But when they read the Quran and follow its teachings, they can become what she calls a killing machine. Groups like ISIS, Al-Shabaab, and Boko Haram aren't extremists or fanatics in her view. They're just good Muslims who follow the teachings of Islam. The Prophet Muhammad did what they're doing. They're simply following his example. Let's look at that verse she mentioned, Quran 4:34, in full. Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them, then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and finally, strike them. But if they obey you once more, seek no means against them. Indeed, Allah is ever exalted and grand. A common response to this verse is that the word for strike or beat really means to hit lightly, just a tap. When traveling in the Middle East, the narrator of this story had the chance to ask a Muslim imam about this exact issue. The imam demonstrated what he considered appropriate, using a small cloth or handkerchief to tap lightly on the hand, saying this is how the Prophet Muhammad taught men to discipline their wives. But there's another perspective found in the Hadith collections, which are the recorded sayings and actions of Muhammad. In Sahih Muslim, Book 4, Hadith 2127, Aisha, Muhammad's youngest wife, is reported to have said, "I have not seen any women suffering as much as believing women. Look, her skin is greener than her clothes." This is Aisha admitting that Muslim women are green with bruises. Aisha herself has a controversial place in Islamic history. She was 6 years old when Muhammad married her and 9 years old when he consummated that marriage. While that's a topic for another discussion, her testimony about the suffering of believing women is significant. This is really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the treatment of women in Islamic teaching and practice. We're living in a strange and bizarre time where religious pluralism creates a veneer of acceptance and love, but that veneer is actually causing us to supersede the rights of individuals and the rights of women with this idea that we must accept all religious practices without criticism. Data from UN Women and UNICEF shows the extent to which the mistreatment of women has been accepted, even by women themselves, in Muslim countries around the world. The statistics are sobering and demonstrate that these theological teachings have real-world impacts on millions of women's lives. The aim of sharing Mona Walter's story is not to insult, disrespect, or disparage Muslim people or fellow human beings. This is not an attack on people. Rather, it's about recognizing that when we come across information like this, we have a responsibility to show that there are significant problems with some ideologies within Islam. These ideas have real-world impacts on real people's lives. Because we're called to love people, we have to expose things that work against human rights and human flourishing. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. To truly care about human dignity means we cannot remain silent about doctrines and practices that harm vulnerable people, especially women and children. Mona Walter continues her mission today through videos and speaking appearances. She says she won't stop, even though her life is in constant danger. She believes that knowledge is power, and that if Muslims truly understood what was in their own holy texts, many would make the same choice she did. She's not fighting against people. She's fighting for them, hoping to give them the information and the freedom to choose their own path. If this story moved you or made you think differently, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear Mona's message. Too many people are suffering in silence, and the only way to create change is to shine light on the truth. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and let's have a real conversation about these issues. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video where we'll continue exploring topics that matter. Together, we can make a difference.